All right, everyone. So back in the 19th century, huge technological changes started happening, and it sparked these two really powerful protest movements. We're going to dive into the Luddites and the Chartists today. There were two groups who were fighting against a future they did not want. But, and this is the interesting part, they did it in completely different ways.
Okay, so let's kick things off with a question that probably feels pretty relevant to you guys right now. Could a machine, or maybe even AI, take your job one day? I mean, with all the talk about automation, it's something a lot of us are thinking about when we picture our future careers, right?
Well, believe it or not, this is not a new fear at all. If you rewind about 200 years to Britain, for a lot of people, this wasn't just a fear, it was a terrifying reality. The Industrial Revolution brought this explosion of new tech, and it literally threatened to turn thousands of people's lives completely upside down.
So let's look at the first group to react to all this change, the Luddites. Their approach to the problem was, well, let's just say it was very direct and pretty destructive.
Now, you gotta understand, the Luddites weren't just any workers. These were skilled craftspeople, textile workers. You could think of them as the middle class of their day. So just imagine for a second, you're a master at what you do, you make a good living, you're respected. And then, almost overnight, a new machine comes along that an unskilled, low-paid worker can operate to do your job, but faster and way cheaper. That's exactly what they were facing.
So what do? Well, their response was pretty dramatic. We're talking about groups of them, often under the cover of darkness, breaking into factories and just smashing the new machines to pieces. This act of machine breaking became their calling card, their main way of fighting back.
Okay, and this is a really important point, a common myth about the Luddites. People think they were just anti-technology, that they hated all machines. But that's not it at all. I mean, these were skilled artisans. They used tools and technology every single day. Their fight wasn't against the machines themselves. It was about how factory owners were using those machines to drive down wages, make their skills worthless, and honestly, to make lower quality stuff. For them, this was an economic fight, plain and simple. It was about survival.
So, how did the government respond? Well, it was swift and it was brutal. They sided completely with the factory owners. They passed laws making machine breaking a capital offense, and yeah, that means it was punishable by death. They even sent 12,000 troops to hunt the Luddites down. The ones who were caught were either executed or transported to penal colonies, basically exiled to Australia. The movement was just completely crushed.
All right, so at the same time, there's another group looking at the exact same problems. These are the Chartists, and they came to a totally different conclusion. They thought, you know what? Smashing machines isn't the answer. The real problem is the political system itself.
The Chartists' thinking went something like this. The real issue here isn't the technology. It's the fact that we have no power, no voice. They figured if ordinary working people could vote, they could elect people to parliament who would actually look out for them, who would pass laws to protect their jobs and improve their lives. So their fight wasn't economic, it was political.
And their whole movement was centered around this one really important document called the People's Charter. It basically laid out 6 main goals, their demands for making the political system fair and democratic.
And when you look at what they were asking for, it's kind of mind-blowing how normal it all sounds to us today. A vote for every man over 21, a secret ballot so no one could bully you into voting a certain way, getting paid to be a member of parliament so not just rich guys could afford to do it. You know, stuff we take for granted. But back then, these ideas were seen as incredibly radical, even dangerous. Today, they're pretty much the foundation of modern democracy.
So to show the government that they weren't just a small group of troublemakers, the Chartists organized these huge petitions. Their very first one back in 1839 got over 1.2 million signatures. That is a massive number of people for that time.
And they didn't just stop there. A few years later, in 1842, they did it again, and this time they got over 3.3 million signatures. To give you some perspective, that was a huge chunk of the entire population of Britain. This was really the first time the country had seen a massive, organized political movement that was driven by working-class people.
And yet, after all that, can you guess what happened? Parliament, which was of course made up of the wealthy elite the Chartists were trying to challenge, just flat out rejected their petitions. Every time. They wouldn't even consider them. Chartist leaders got arrested, and it really looked like the whole movement had just failed, a total bust.
So, if we're looking at the immediate results, it looks pretty bleak, right? The Luddites were crushed by the army, and the Chartists were defeated in Parliament. It seems like they both failed. But, is that really the whole story? This chart here does a great job of summing it all up.
You've got the Luddites with their economic grievance, using direct action, smashing machines, and then you have the Chartists with their political grievance, using mass organization, signing petitions. Both got defeated right away, but the long-term legacies, well, they couldn't be more different.
Because here's the incredible twist. Even though the Chartist movement itself fizzled out, their ideas lived on. And over the next several decades, one by one, almost all of their demands actually became law. So you see, the Chartists might have lost the battle in their own time, but in the long run, they absolutely won the war. They literally laid the foundation for the democracy that exists in Britain today.
Okay, let's do a quick recap. What are the main things you really need to remember from all this?
Okay, here's the bottom line. The Industrial Revolution caused huge problems for skilled workers. The Luddites responded by fighting an economic battle. They attacked the machines that were taking their wages. The Chartists, on the other hand, fought a political battle. They wanted democratic rights, a voice in how the country was run. And even though both movements seemed to fail at first, it was the Chartist ideas that ended up changing everything in the long run.
All right, to finish up, here are a couple of questions just to check your understanding. Try to answer them in your own words. If you could do that, you've totally got the core ideas and why these two groups were so different and why their legacies are so important.